Welcome to the Ladies Talk Show. This is Leah Richheimer. We are in such an exciting part. This is called the Toxicity of Control. Are you ready? Get your drums out. We are going to have a great time. The thing about the Toxicity of Control is this might, like, when you hear this, it's going to like be mind-boggling of how much we feel like we need to be in control. Being a micromanager myself, okay, this is really resonates. So here's the thing, guys. We are on In the Marriage Secrets, and we're on chapter number 6, page 121, and I'm going to read 2 sections, and then we are going to take your questions. The toxicity of control. We were sold a bill of goods by the secular media. Many of us became intoxicated with the idea that the more things you can control in your life, the safer the world would be, and the more choices you would have about your future. Yet, all we have after decades of fighting for control is loss of closeness. You should get the tissues out. Okay. The obsession for control and micromanagement of everything has pushed our stress levels to the max. How often in the course of a day does our blood pressure spike because the day isn't going the way we planned? How many times have we come to loggerheads with our children, telling them what they must do, rather than giving them the space to come to the correct choice on their own? Or even to make detrimental choices, letting our kids make detrimental choices and learn from their mistakes, which is a great way to learn. But we micromanage and come in and tell them what to do. Helicopter, anyone? Okay, and how much frustration have we endured from employees or sales clerk who fail to behave in the way they should have? You know, we go to the store and they're supposed to, give us the thing or give us the receipt, and they don't do the thing that they're supposed to do. And most sorrowfully of all, how frequently do we have conflicts with our husband about what, when, and how things should be done? I don't know. Hello. Okay. It seems that we always think we know the best way to do everything. We believe that our husband would just do things our way. Everything in life would be perfect, would be better. But as the story with Chevy shows, preoccupation with having control is usually disastrous to a marriage. Recognize, however, that in our society, having control has been billed as the ultimate win. Books and media glorify the lone wolf standing high up in a skyscraper, looking down powerfully over all that he controls. Or a race car driver deftly handling the wheel with all the horsepower in his hands. Control is usually seen as a masculine trait. Men without control are not seen as manly. But in our society, even a mother's success is often measured by how well she controls her children or her staff. But the grand irony of this campaign for control is that thinking we can control anything is ludicrous. As we all know, any appearance of control is completely illusion. There is only one true power in this world, as can be witnessed with infinite examples. No one has control of anything. The richest man in the world can lose everything in an instant. The underdog athlete can triumph inexplicably. A baby can be born to a seemingly infertile woman. Only our Creator has ultimate control. Of course, we are meant to work hard towards our goals and pray fervently for everything in our lives. But the outcome, it's in Hashem's hands. Having control is so completely unattainable that it's almost laughable that we ever let ourselves get duped into thinking that we should fight to gain control in the first place. What a hollow victory we've been racing after our whole life. And while it's true that control isn't all bad, after all, we need to know how to control ourselves, how to control it and manage our lives as best we can. There is one thing we must never try to control. And I'm sure you can guess what that is, or rather, who that is. Okay, I'm going to read one more section, and then we're going to get your questions. Ruling the roost. Do you know who it is, by the way, everybody? Do you know who we shouldn't be controlling? If you said to your husband, you would be right. Okay, ruling the roost. So even if we can come to recognize the seductive nature of wanting to control everything, even if we know how damaging wanting control is to ourselves and to everyone around us, And even if we truly grasp deep down inside that only Hashem has the ultimate control, how do we take the earth-shaking step of curtailing our desire to control everything? How do we extricate ourselves from a lifetime of battling to win control at all costs? The answer is shockingly simple. We were not born to need control. It's a learned trait. Deep within the nature of a woman, it is far more important for us to connect deeply with people than it ever was to control them. So there's a trade-off between controlling and connecting. Okay, it's inverse relationship. The more we try to control them, the less we connect with them. And for a woman, connecting is like oxygen. Since we'll be following our innate nature to connect, letting go of controlling habits will be that much easier. Further, when we witness that every time we let go of control, we grow closer to our husbands, our efforts will be bolstered. Our motivation will get stronger with the more examples of closeness we see. In the heat of the moment, our success in drawing our husband nearer to us will help us to choose connection over control. Connection over control more and more often. For those of us who considers ourselves control freaks, myself included, actually count me twice, okay, there's a very good news ahead. For when we forgo the need to control our husbands, an overabundance of connection comes whooshing in from all directions. We become closer to our husband, and the contentment and pleasure we feel is unparalleled. Any loneliness we may feel, any loneliness we may have had is replaced with so much camaraderie that we may even need a bit of space from it until we get used to it. A far more beautiful problem than feeling isolated. But it is critical to understand that there is an inverse relationship between control and connection. The more we try to control our husband, the less we connect with him. And the more we let go, the closer we will get. Until that dream we all have of going through life with exquisite harmony and a true best friend will be actualized. Ta-da! What's your questions, ladies? Come at me. Faggy, what's the first one? Hold on, let me just put my sticker over here. So we're ready for next class. Okay, go ahead, Faggy.
Okay, so Sarid asks, when I married my husband, I thought that he would be a type A. At least that's what I was hoping for. My in-laws joke with me, we're so happy that our son married a Jewish girl. Now he doesn't have to make another decision for the rest of his life. Lol, but I don't want to be the one making decisions. How can we switch the roles of control?
Wow. Wow, that's a toughie. So what I don't understand, Sarit, is what your goal is. I mean, I'm not quite sure I understand. Like, do you want to not have control? Could you understand that, Peggy, from her question?
I think she doesn't want to have control.
She wants to do what Hashem says. Yes. Okay, which is to give up control. Okay, so she wants it, but she's saying that she's in her whole environment supports her being the one in control, and she doesn't want it. Okay, I think I'm getting the picture. So this is interesting. I think that it's, you know, when you're in that kind of environment, it's almost hard to not have it sort of just your whole life is about doing what's a habit to you. You know, you've been controlling for so long, and everyone turns for you to control and to make decisions and whatever. And when you realize that it's causing you closeness to your husband and other people, you probably as well, now you want to make a shift, but like everybody knows you 10 years, 10, 20 years, 30 years, and they boxed you in to being a different self than now you want to be. So in anything we want to grow in life, it's challenging. You know, somebody says, okay, I want to go on a diet. You know, now they're person who has donuts with them every Monday. What do they do about that? You know, you have to rearrange logistically your life to support you in what you're up to and what you want to do. You want to learn more Torah, but you're addicted to, you know, the Kindle or, you know, something or social media or something. You're always on Instagram, but you really want to do more learning. So how do you make that habit shift when your neshama is aching to grow in a certain way and your goof is just used to the same rote every day? And that is by taking baby steps. So I wouldn't have her, call up her mother-in-law and have a big talk and say, hey, no more of this. I'm not controlling anymore. He's making all the decisions and, whatever. It just wouldn't work that way. So baby steps would be anything like, for instance, you might, your husband might say, where are we going to dinner? Let's say it's date night or something. You're going out to dinner. What are we going to do for dinner? And you're like, oh, you're used to just telling them what the answer is. Now, some guys like that. There's like, oh, good, I don't have to think about it, and I don't have to make sure she's happy. I'm happy eating anything, and she's the one who's picky. So let's just go with it. So I wouldn't work on that. But let's say you feel that you want him to be making more decisions. It could be you sit down with him and you say, listen, I realize that your mom made that joke at our Sheva Brachas about how now you don't have to make any decisions. And I realized I went down that path and we're very far down that path. I kind of would like to, not have so much control in our marriage. And I'm not sure what that'll look like. And to be honest with you, I'm a little scared of like, will I be able to do it? Or will you, point your finger at me and say, hey, you're taking control again, whatever. And so I'm even nervous and feel very vulnerable sharing this with you, but I really want to grow in this area. Because I think there's a trade-off. You can tell them the MSc, there's a trade-off between control and connection. And I feel like, there's some things about me that are controlling that I think are great. Like when it's time for, to have a Sheva Brachas, I'm like very controlling. You put the plates there. You, everyone, all the hot food should go in here and then the fridge should be here. And we're having this shelf is going to be for the drinks and, whatever. So that aspect of my micromanaging and controlling, I think really works for us. And I don't want that to be broken or, we don't need to fix that because it really serves us very, very well. But the things where things always have to be my way, and not so much. Like I'd like to learn how to not be that person. And maybe I just have to do that myself and it's an independent thing. Maybe you knowing about it will help you help me, unless you're going to be naggy at me or hold it against me and make me feel bad for being the way I am. Because, it's much better to be growing than to be, and I'm trying to work towards being closer to you. So you can share all of these types of ideas that you have on how to do it. If that works, you have to know your husband. You have to know if you have good communication, or that's actually going to be successful, or whether, that he's going to actually use this against you and it's going to make it harder for you to grow yourself. So that's a decision you have to make for yourself. But in terms of taking baby steps yourself, you can do things like, you're about to say, we're having spaghetti tonight, and say, instead of saying statements, I'm going to say more questions. Okay. And by saying more questions, that's just a focus in your mind, like a mindset for you to take on with yourself, is instead of saying statements, we're having spaghetti tonight, ask a question. We can have spaghetti or fish sticks or whatever. I don't know what people say. I was going to say, steak, but whatever. You have to know your budget and what you like cooking. But anyway, you can say we're going to have those. And then that in your mind, he will not know the difference. None of the family nobody will know that that's you lessening control. So you won't have any, fighting against them, nagging you or feeling vulnerable. They won't know, but you will know. You will know that you're asking more questions rather than statements because you want to have less control. You want to be less controlling. So that's where I would start with it, is ask more questions. I would also think about activities that you do that are very controlling, like you put out, all your kids' clothes for the night before and you pick their outfits. So that's controlling, and maybe the kids need it because otherwise you're never going to get out in the morning if they don't do. But maybe you say, okay, that's a little control, that's controlling. I'd like to be closer to my kid. Sarah, come in. We're going to pick your clothes for tomorrow. And then maybe that turns into a battle. So you have to know your kid and you have to pick things that aren't going to be too stressful for you. But basically, slowly but surely, you just do one little habit after the next and tackle each one. And within 6 months, 3 months, 6 months, a year, you will see you're a much less controlling person. But just so you know, and then we're going to go to the next question, just so you know, just having the awareness that you're going to be working on being less controlling is very empowering. It's kind of like a game changer. It's like, now you'll notice much more when you are controlling, which actually can be depressing. Like, like I didn't realize, so don't get down on yourself. The only people who have that feeling of badness about themselves are people who are growing. If you, oh, well, I mean, in other words, that's a direct result of growth, is seeing what you're doing wrong. And that doesn't mean you shouldn't grow. It means you just need to forgive yourself and chill a little bit on yourself. Fantastic question. Okay, Faggy, what's the next one?
Okay, so the next question is from Tippy.
Okay.
I feel like I can't relinquish control without having a stronger feeling of trust in my husband. How can I work on trusting him more so that I can give him more control?
That's beautiful question, Sippy. So what you have to understand is that the trust comes. It's not trust comes first and then you give him control. It's you give him control and then he fails 10 times. Then he doesn't do what he said. You said, okay, the phone bill needs to be paid. I'm not going to be so controlling, whatever. I'm going to let him do it. And then the lights get shut out. Okay. So I hear there is definite ramifications to letting go of control. Things aren't going to look the way you think they should look. They're not going to look the way maybe they should look. Maybe your husband's not dependable, but it's just like with any muscle. If he hasn't been using it for 10 years because you've been grabbing it out of his hands, he's got you got to give him little things. I wouldn't say, if you've been running the finances the whole, for the last 10 years, and you're like, I'm just doing it because controlling. I tell him everything he does. I wouldn't hand him the books and say, good luck. I would say, okay, let's say you always decide how much you can go for vacation. So you say, where would you like to go from vacation? And he says, well, what can we afford? What do we have this year? Your answer would be, we'll figure it out. You first tell me what you want, and then we'll figure it out. So just little pieces of these things that you're controlling. Give them little pieces at a time. But again, remember, trust follows the granting of control, not the other way around. And as far as trust, and I'll just speak one moment on that because it is a very serious issue, is that when a person has ne'emanis, which is trustworthiness, loyalty, you can count on them, right? The best way to live in an environment that's trustworthy is to be trustworthy, to work very, very hard at keeping your word, your own word. This is all from Chazal. This is not Leah Richheimer. Oh, you're so smart, Leah. It's not me. This is Chazal. That you have to, that being a person who is trustworthy. And by that, I mean, yes, doing what you say you are going to do, but you working on it so much so that you wouldn't even say, oh, I'll call you back in 5 minutes. Unless at 4 minutes and 55 seconds, you're dialing the phone. Okay. It's so you wouldn't say it. You'd say, oh, I'll call you back hopefully soon. You wouldn't say 5 minutes. You're very careful with your languaging. You wouldn't say, let's do lunch, because that just goes nowhere. You would say, I hope to see you in the future instead. You wouldn't say, oh, just a sec, because it's not a sec. You're coming back and you're coming downstairs in 5 minutes. So you would say, just a little bit. I'll hopefully be there soon. So you're very careful with what you say, and then you follow through on what you say. That's learning your own na'amanis. So the more loyal you are, the more trustworthy you are, the more people can depend on you, the more dependable they will become. For the most part, you will have an environment of dependability. So work on yourself. That's the number one. That's the number one avoda, to be having an environment that's more trustworthy. And if that doesn't work, if you just have a guy who's just totally not trustworthy, okay, now you've got to work on compensatory strategies. You have to say, he's not, he says he's going to do this and he's not. He says, oh, I'll be there at 7. So you have to either do one of two things. You have to say, you mean 7:30, or does 7 mean 7 or 7 mean 7:30? You know it means 7:30. Okay, if you know it means 7:30, that means when he says I'll be there at 7, you have the babysitter come at 7:30, because it'll aggravate you so much to be paying her for that half hour that you're just waiting for your husband to come home. Like that, you have to compensate, knowing that they're not trustworthy, and that will build in you just a resilience and ability to go with the flow, and you'll be a true Ezer Kenegdo. Hard work, yes, but here's what you have to know. It's building closeness in your relationship. Even if you don't see it, even if he doesn't say thank you, you are creating a closeness that hopefully, probably you'll be able to witness. No guarantees, but probably you'll be able to see that he's more thoughtful and caring to take care of you, because you are, instead of chastising him and yelling at you, said 7 o'clock and it's 7:30, instead of all that fighting and bitterness and anger and constant tension in the house, it'll shift into him trying to please you more, because you're chilling. You're okay. This is with my lot in life. God made him this way, and it's hard for me, but I'm just going to be given this very challenging situation. Can I step up to the mat and be the best me I can possibly be? Good luck to you. Okay, next question, Faggy.
Okay, so Tanya has a question. I don't want to control my husband, but I definitely want to help influence him in the right direction. How can I do that without trying to be controlling?
Well, I mean, they're two completely different things. We have controlling, somebody who's controlling and somebody who's an influencer. We're going to get into more of that in next class. But basically, instead of saying, same thing, statements, ask questions instead of statements. Instead of saying, let's go do this, which is controlling, you say, should we do this or should we do that? One of the favorite sentences of all times, is it possible? He says, oh, we're going to go, we're going to my in-laws for lunch. And you're like, oh my gosh, I'm exhausted. The baby didn't sleep all week. So instead of saying, we're not going, right? That's controlling. But an influencer would say, is it possible? I'm exhausted. Is it possible we can go the following week? Like that. Good question. Okay, Faggy, what's the next one?
Okay, so Nama has a question. I rely on social media so much in my day-to-day life. My husband doesn't approve of this, but I use it for getting shetelmacher or cooking ideas, etc. How can I explain to him that this stuff isn't controlling me and that I'm in control of it?
It's a good question. If she's just getting recipes and shetelmacher and whatever, I mean, I'm not coming in as the judge and jury of what is good and what isn't bad or whatever, but it seems to me like then there would be a conversation she could have with him that he could hear. If she's on there and she's, just, for 4 hours, she's, doing her Instagram status, and meanwhile, the kids are, in a diaper has a diaper rash because it hasn't been changed in 3 days, God forbid, or whatever. That's a problem, that she actually has an addiction. So it is a little hard to answer because there's such a range of what is going on. It sounds like, and let's just assume for the answer to this question, let's assume that she is really doing it for very useful things. Then a conversation would be something like, listen, I know that you don't like the social media that I'm on, whatever. It actually happens to save me time, so I can spend more time making nice meals for you or more time with the kids, just because instead of driving around looking for a shetelmacher, I can just look at it. I can ask my friends and everybody posts, and then I can find out that information. If it bothers you horribly, I mean, I guess we can maybe figure out a way to do it. But is it possible if I limit it to, 20 minutes a day or an hour a day, whatever, you have to figure out these things for yourselves, with that. So, if you understand what I'm saying, it's not the words I'm saying, it's the gist of sort of, sort of handing the problem to him, working with him, communicating with him, trying to figure out a good solution and a good compromise. Rather than it being a battle, you're saying, what can we do? How can we solve this? So in her situation, I think a conversation like that could go very, very well. Or she could say, I'm only going to do it when you're not, if I do it when you're not around, because maybe what bothers him about her doing that is he's sitting at the table looking at the trees and and twittering in the trees and the fall leaves churning and whatever, and she's sitting there like this. That could be what bothers her. So she needs to have a conversation with him to come to a compromise of what's bothering him, why it's bothering him. Is it spiritual reasons, philosophical reasons, logistical, he feels left out? She needs to find that out. Once she knows that, then she can have a conversation. If on the other hand it's the other extreme where she is addicted, then That's a big issue. And some people say cold turkey is the best. Some people say, putting a timer or having a timer on your phone. There are apps that actually will shut your phone off so that you have to get off. Thank you. So then that's a whole other set of problems. They might have to go to a Rabbi Rebbitzin to discuss how to get her off this addiction or how to manage it better. So it doesn't interfere with her daily life. But yeah, very good. Okay, we got the next question. Faggy, very good question.
Okay, so Rifki has a question. Unfortunately, my husband is quite controlling. Baruch Hashem, not in a scary or angry way, but he is not very easygoing, and I usually end up giving in and he gets his way. How can we work on this issue? I'm starting to feel a little resentful and trapped.
So he always gets his way. Okay, so we do I've got some scary, yucky news, frightening news, which is that he always should get his way. No, joking. That was kind of like a little bit of a joke. But the truth is, we're supposed to, there is a chazal that says that you should bring close to you close to your husband what he likes, and keep away things from him that he doesn't like. So to follow his will and to bring to him what he likes. So it's very, very clear. And then we have many, many sources for this. So it kind of puts the burden on us to try and do that in a way that makes us happy. And that's where we have B'nai Sarah. So we can come up with like he's saying, we're leaving the house at 8:00. And you're like, oh my gosh, nobody else is going to be there. We're going to be an hour early for the chasana. We're going to, whatever it is, so your best idea is to have him think of the idea, and say, I heard that this other thing is going on. There's a shiur from 8 to 8:30. Maybe let's listen to that first. I'm not doing a good example. My brain is whatever. But anyway, you get what I'm saying. If you try and have him think of an idea, even though it's not exactly his will, it's not like you have to follow him and get resentful, like she's saying. It's you can think of clever ways to get around what he is saying. It's not manipulation. It's using your seichel to come out to a better income. So outcome. Thank you. Hello, and a better income. So the issue is that the key here, and this is the bottom line answer, is that you have to have the ability to be willing to go with what he says. If you're willing to go with what he says, then he'll bend his ear to you to hear what you have to say. So a lot of times when you have a husband who is really, really super controlling, it could be that way from birth. It could be that he was raised in a certain way or a certain family, or his father was like that and he mimics her, or his mother like that and he mimics her. It could be that that's the case. But a lot of cases, I would say a good portion, like 80% or 90%, are a man is grabbing control because his wife isn't giving him any control. You just have to bear with me here, because it sounds like I'm blaming the victim. Okay, and I'm not trying to do that, but many times, once a woman learns this chapter and she starts giving him control over as much as she can, there's some things that are so strong and so it's vital to her, and she doesn't even know how to express it. We'll get into the communication chapters, and then you will know how to express it. But even right now, she feels so strongly about it. Don't worry about those for right now. Right now, give up anything you can let go of. And you'll see your husband, the more control you grant him, and he has, which he needs like oxygen, the more control he has, the more he's going to ask you, what do you think about this? What do you think? What's your opinion on that? This is what I want to do. What do you think? He's always going to bend his ear. And we know this from Chazal, and we've got thousands of examples from my students who wrote and say, it's unbelievable. It's like magic. It works like magic. So that's your homework, to try this at home, to let go of as many little things of control as you possibly can. That will give you such a sense of satisfaction, and hopefully work so well that it'll allow you to have less and less control over things that you thought you could never you would care so much about, but that you will not care about. So it's a work in progress. We're always growing there, but your homework this week is to let go of control of at least one thing. If you can do one every day, that's great. If not, one for the week. We'll see you next week. This is Leah Richheimer for the Ladies Talk Show. See you next time.